Hey guys, it's your beautiful host here, Glassford Crossfield, and we have a guy in his male self improvement space. He shows you how to work out, he shows you how to deal with women, he shows you even how to shave. Go check him out. He's up and coming. Get on his level before you blow up. Love y'all. Welcome back to another episode of Important Miscellaneous Talks. I'm your host, Glassford Crossfield, and we are changing the world one podcast at a time. Please, our wonderful guest, introduce yourself.
G'day, everyone. My name's Tom. I am the owner of Strong Young Man on YouTube, and we are trying to change the world.
Amen. So, explain the kind of content that you have on your YouTube channel.
Yeah, so basically, it's a self improvement channel dedicated to all men, not just young, who are a little bit lost, wanting to get back on the right path. And it covers all aspects of what I deem to be the cornerstone of becoming a man, and being productive and giving back to society.
So, do you feel like you were lost at one point as a man?
Ab- yeah, absolutely. I'm a child of divorced home, all too common in the West. 50% of marriages end up in divorce, and I spent my parents divorced when I was about 10, and I ended up spending the bulk of my teens living with my mum and my two sisters,
Mm.
and because of that, I had no masculine direction. And yeah, just sort of coming into adulthood, absolutely lost. You sort of you don't know what to do once you finish school, and families are broken now more than ever, and it's only going to get worse from here.
So, did you end up going to college or university?
Yeah, I ended up making it through. I'm an engineer by trade. um, so I was, always did well in school, but it was a journey to complete college. Yeah, definitely. So I spent the first 2 years I flunked a lot of my subjects, coming from doing really well in school. Partying too much, not really taking responsibility for my life, and but then I sort of kicked into gear around 23 and just finished my degree off. And yeah, but it was quite hard in the early days, definitely. Yeah.
How old are you now?
31. So born in 1990. Finished school in 2008, and then yeah, it took me sort of till I was about 25, I'd say, till I got my degree, a 4-year degree, and yeah, I've been working hard ever since. So the grind started for me at 25, and I've done well to get to where I am at 31.
Mm.
So it's not all lost for everyone who's sort of halfway through their 20s. But the earlier you do start, the better off you are.
Yeah. So, how were you able to stay so consistent?
I've always been really driven. I think I actually learned this from my father, funnily enough. He's a tradie, which is he builds houses, and I've seen him work 6 days a week for the last 50 years. And it's sort of, and this is the thing I always say with one of the reasons why it's important to have a father in the house is because you see that firsthand how dedicated a man is to his job and how sacrificial he is to his family. Um, so yeah, in my late teens, I moved back in with dad. I thought, enough's enough, and I needed some direction. I moved back in with my dad, and sort of I inherited a little bit of his diligence. And while I lost it in my early 20s, I sort of got it back around 25. And once I'm focused on something, I'm able to stay on task.
Mm. So, what age did you move back in with your father?
I was 17, so it's the last year of second to last year of high school, and yeah, it was for a couple of years. But yeah, I think by that time I was able to work hard for a couple of years, but once I finished school, I was sort of lost. Yeah.
Mm. So, how long did it take you with living with your father for you to really develop some of the habits that you wanted to?
Um. Oh, probably 5 years. Yeah, like until I just remember one day my old man sat me down because I was lost, and I what I ended up doing was I ended up dropping out of college. So that was in 2010. I dropped out and I sort of was just sort of bumming around the house doing nothing, and Dad sat me down and said, it doesn't matter what you do, you just have to be able to provide. You have to provide something. Whether it's to a family, to society, you got to do something.
Mm.
And it sort of put a rocket up my ass, and I was like, fuck, I better go back to college and work my hardest. And that was in 2010, 2011. So probably 3-4 years living with Dad.
Why did you end up starting a YouTube channel?
Um, yeah, it's a good question actually. I mean, I do see value in the stuff that I teach and the ideas, and that's sort of why I champion them. Um, I do have a lot to offer. I have figured out a lot over the last sort of 6 years that I reckon I can give back. I'm at a point now where I've stabilized, and I can give back to the world. And I've identified a few problems within society that some people can see, and I'm stepping up. I'm taking responsibility for that, and just trying to fix it wherever I can, in any way I can.
So the research that you have for your channel, does that stem from life experiences, or was it came from books or other YouTube channels?
Yeah, all three. Um,
Mm.
I read a lot. Um,
Yeah.
Last year I read 200 books through COVID. That
Holy
was one of my goals. Yeah, 200 books, and they weren't short books either. Like a lot of them were, I think about half a dozen of them were over 1,500 pages. Um,
holy cow.
yeah, I
Wow.
probably spent probably 7-8 hours a day reading. All
Wow.
sorts of books, all sorts of books. Yeah, um, that was definitely where I gathered a lot of my information. But yeah, like you said as well, life experience. You sort of play the field, deal with people, get their stories. People seem to open up when you shut up. And you're a fantastic host. It's like you sort of people will talk if you let them,
Mm.
and you can learn in any scenario, as long as you're open to it. And so I learn a lot through other people, older than me and younger than me. Um, and then other guys on YouTube, some of the influencers in the sphere, I look up to, sort of like a father figure, and yeah,
200 books. Wow. Wow. Cuz I read like 12, I think like 12, maybe 14 last year. And I'm thinking
mm,
like I'm doing something crazy. 200 books? That's amazing. 7 8 hours though? That's tough. I might give you half
yeah,
to an hour a day.
yeah. I mean, it was COVID. I can't repeat it. I tried. We're in May, and I think I've read about 40 or 50. I'm never getting 200 again. Um, yeah,
This year I think I'm like on my fifth, fourth or fifth. Wow.
yeah.
I really don't do because I was trying to aim for a book a month, and you're defeating that substantially.
um, yeah. I mean, it's something I enjoy doing. I don't know. I don't know if I just put my I'll either sit down and read, or it's audio books in when I'm doing anything that I can.
Mm.
Um, 2 times speed is really helpful. One of the things that I've learned over the years is you've always got to be pushing the limits of, um, your mental strength as well as your physical strength. And so, through a bit of experimenting, I've found that you you try and speed it up a little bit faster, and then you get used to it, and you push it a little bit more, and your brain sort of adapts and processes things a little bit quicker. Um, Sort of like, you're running a marathon. You start by running a little bit further each time, and your body adapts, and it's the same sort of thing with your mind. You keep pushing the limits, and you'll increase your ability to think and process. And it's funny because you go back to like 1 time speed, and it just feels so slow. Like everything on YouTube that I listen to is always 2 times speed, and even then it's not fast enough.
Oh wow. I
Mm.
never I never thought about that. I'm not an audiobook guy. I have a Kindle app, so
Yep.
I usually just like read it from my phone. But
Yeah.
I gotta push myself to read a little bit fast. I'm a slow reader too, so I gotta push myself to read a little faster.
Yeah. I definitely think that I can't read as fast as I can listen. And everyone's different. Like you play to your strengths. I'm an audio learner, not a visual learner. and so that helps me out, and it obviously works in my favor that I can sort of do listen to it while I'm driving. Um, but yeah, like I can see, like I do enjoy reading as well from the phone and stuff like that. And one of the applications, I forget what it's called. It's not obviously I've got Audible, but there's other applications that you can rent books from and stuff. And I've read through those, but I do find my neck gets a bit sore because I'm always sort of looking down at the phone. I don't know how you cope with it.
I lay down. What what are the top three things that's wrong with men when it comes to dating?
Yeah, a good question. I think that I think a lot of men are bitter. Um,
Mm.
they've sort of been rejected over and over and over because of the state of dating and the way that it sort of is with Instagram and Tinder and all that. I think they've ruined a lot of dating for men and for women. And it's sort of, I think, me personally as well. I subscribed out of women for a few years in my mid 20s, um, and I could see myself starting to become a little bitter as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of men stayed in that place where they're just overtly resent and hate women because of their rejections and stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
it's tough as a man. I don't think a lot of women understand how ruthless they can be,
Mm-hmm.
rejecting men. Even it doesn't matter how good looking you are. I can only imagine like what all the other guys go through who don't have their stuff together.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that would be number one, I think. I think number two, I think the women are extremely deluded and they have much too high expectations when it comes to what they want in a man. They think that they're entitled to the best man, top 1% guy, and there's just not enough of them around. And what happens is a lot of them end up getting to their late 20s and they're disappointed because they haven't got a man that they believe that they've been entitled to, and then they start to resent and hate men, and it sort of shifts a little bit. The the older men have sort of gotten over their bitterness, and then the women are starting to just get bitter, and it sort of flips. um yeah.
So you seem to be a man who's putting the work to improve himself, and you're past the age of 30 now. So a lot of the stuff that I watch, they say once you hit 30, men typically are on the incline and women are typically on the decline. Have you
Yep.
noticed that in your environment?
Yeah, definitely. Australia's, it's I think no matter where you go, it's sort of it is what it is. Men's mate value. I think Charles Darwin was the first to talk about this, in his one of his books, the theory of mate selection or sexual selection. And everyone's got a mate value, and it's based on what the opposite gender desires in you. And for men, we desire youth, fertility, beauty, all those kind of reproductive cues, which peaks early on. And for women, what they desire in men is, you know, the ability to protect, provide, preside, um, and raise a family. And that peaks for men in their, 30s and 40s. And I've noticed it personally. Women look at you differently. They just, even if you just look a bit older, they just look at you with this, you know, vigor. You sort of matured, and like it's the age old saying, men age like wine. Like it's true.
Women age like milk.
Yeah. Yeah, it's unfortunate. And that's why, I always tell women, I've had a lot of conversations with women and I hear them sort of say, oh, I'm going to hold off on this until I'm this age. And it's just like, no, you have to cash out while your value's high, because you're going to lose. You're going to lose in the end, and you're going to be disappointed. And, I've seen it, like I mentioned to you before, my sisters, I'm 31, my sisters are 30 and 29, and they are going through the same thing now. And they
Mm.
should have cashed out earlier. No one told them.
So did you the women that you dealt with in the past that rejected you, have some of them come back around?
uh no, I have a policy where as soon as I'm rejected by a woman, I just they're out. Like that's
No,
no
but
no free attention.
I'm saying, yeah, that's a good rule to have. But I'm saying though, have they come back around? Have they attempted?
No, not that I can think of, but I wouldn't be surprised if they have, and I've just not seen their message or something like that. Um, yeah, I sort of I don't hang around with a lot of the women that I was sort of hanging around with in my early 20s, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's a very common theme.
Got you, got you. What's the biggest piece of advice you would lend to men when it comes to self improvement and dating?
Um, I would say focus on yourself in your 20s, 100%.
Mm,
The best thing that I ever did was remain single from 25 to till now. I've been single for the last 6 years. There's no shame in that. Um, Focus on yourself in your 20s, and you'll build the confidence and the abilities to be able to deal with women very productively in your 30s.
mm.
Um, you just have to put in the work in your early 20s. It's imperative. It's the best thing you'll ever do.
Man, so what are some of the things that they can do to put in the work?
Hmm. So you basically need to be so fit and healthy is one thing. You need to be able to physically stand up and fight. I reckon that's a key to becoming a man. Um, so yeah, physical health and fitness. You need to work on your ability to influence people. So power and influence is one cornerstone. Um, you need to work on your uh, psychological health and intellectual health, the health of your brain. So reading, working out, your issues, dealing with them, putting all the bad traumas behind you, and working through them. And then the fourth one is obviously, yeah, your ability to deal with women, um, which is sort of learning game, and that's something that you should still practice in your 20s. Obviously, I said opt out of dating, but you want to still remain loosely in touch with the sexual marketplace, just because when the time comes to pick it back up again when you're in your 30s, you want to be able to transition seamlessly into getting back into it. Um, One of the things I noticed when I opted out of women altogether between sort of 26, 25, 26, and then to 27 was that when I started to get back into it, it's quite difficult, despite being quite the player sort of in my late teens, early 20s, in my party years.
So kind of it's like muscle memory.
Mm. Yeah, it is. You want to be practiced, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you know, if you sort of out of the game completely, you lose touch with it, and you know you've probably seen it's changed dramatically over the last 5 years, even half a decade, from what it was 10 years ago. The online dating, Instagram, all that sort of stuff has really taken off, and it's just a different marketplace to what it was 5 years ago.
So you mentioned putting the trauma behind you, and you mentioned being a great influence. So what are
Mhm.
some things that men can do to have more influence and to put the trauma behind them?
Yeah, so I'll tackle the influence part of it. I believe every man should read the 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene.
I haven't gotten
It
to that yet.
is it's the best book you'll ever read, in my humble opinion. Um, it basically it breaks down how power uh, it doesn't change throughout the course of history and today. It's all the same. There are certain things that give you more power and influence, and there are certain things that take away your power and influence. And you need to learn these 48 laws if you want to be any kind of influencer. And you'll see people do it, politicians, the media, all of them use all these particular laws at various times. And if you want to be an influencer in and have power and influence in conversations, I believe that's the best place to start. And I've read that book, at least 20 times. Some of the laws I just listened to over and over again, because there's so much information in that book, and it is a big read, but it's worth its weight in gold. That book.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, it's fantastic.
So that's influence. What about the trauma?
Yeah, so personally, I see a psychiatrist to work through the trauma from younger childhood. And when I say trauma, it's not like particularly traumatic at all, but everyone goes through stuff, and especially when you're young, um, in your years when before the myelin sheath of the brain's been uh, formed, uh, the traumas will hit you a lot harder than they would once you've got a developed neocortex. And so anything that happens in that time can be particularly traumatic. And so I basically sought help once I was a little bit lost as well. And I started that when I was 18, and I've kept up the treatment to this day. I see him once a fortnight and for an hour session. And it's the first few years were about healing the wounds, and they weren't too extensive. It's sort of, dealing with being raised by a single mum, all that sort of stuff. It was nothing too extravagant, but once I got past that, the sessions were more about self-discovery, understanding my own emotions. Um, you know, I'd get upset with someone at work, and the doctor would explain why that's a problem for me, why that triggered me. And when you know why something triggers you, you can not do it in the future. You can sort of work around it in the future. The awareness is the antidote to
Mm.
toxic outbursts.
The self-awareness is key. I'm finding that a lot.
Mm.
What what's a fortnight?
Oh, like 2 weeks,
2 weeks.
every
Okay.
2 weeks. You were thinking of the game.
No, no, no. I knew Fortnite was like some unit of measure for time, but I just didn't know how long. And we don't
Yeah,
really
think like
how many
fortnight,
people.
14 days.
Got you, got you. All right. So what's the biggest
Or
piece of yeah?
sorry.
What's the biggest piece of advice you would give to your daughter if you have a daughter? And do you have any kids?
I don't have any kids. I hope to be lucky enough one day. Um, my daughter will get a talking to when she's 16, definitely. And that will consist of letting her know that, life isn't fair, and that this is the reality, that your value is your sexuality, and you want to use that to your advantage while you have it, because it doesn't last forever. Because I think that's the biggest problem that women don't understand, is that they think it's going to be around forever, and it's perishable. It deteriorates. Like you said, it's like milk. Um, but I think if a woman knows that early on and understands that, especially when it's coming from her father, she can work with what she's got, and you know, I think it'll lead to a much happier life if she understands that.
How would you respond to someone? Because I know the comments are probably there now. How would you respond to someone that calls you misogynistic?
I've had a few random comments on YouTube. I tend to ignore them. I don't feel like I need to justify it with a response. In a conversation is a little bit different, because if it's one on one, you sort of, or you're in a group of people and someone labels you a misogynist. I challenge them on it. I challenge them to identify what it is that I was misogynistic about, and why they think I'm a misogynist. Because I know it's easy for them to get triggered into saying that word, because it's all too easy. Um, but yeah, the burden of proof is on them to prove that I'm misogynistic. It's quite a serious claim. It's people don't
Mhm.
understand that um, it's basically saying that you overtly resent and hate men and want to discriminate. Sorry, women, and want to discriminate against women. And absolutely not. That's not what I'm about. Um, I just adhere to realities, and some people get offended with that, and that's on them.
Facts shouldn't be triggering.
Exactly. Facts don't care about your feelings.
Shout out Fresh and Fit.
Fashion fit.
So when it comes to your content creation career, where would you like to take it? Where do you want to see it go?
um, Honestly, I just want to help as many young men as I can. Like, it sounds noble when you put it like that, but I've got everything I need. I'm a minimalist, so I don't really need that many things. I find value in maximizing my knowledge, um, and then spreading it around the world. Um,
Mm.
there's a lot of problems, even just within Australia. Like, it's obviously the West in itself is such a, it's got a lot of problems, but in Australia as well, it's just, we're so woke, and there's just so many people that get offended so easily. And I'd
Mm.
like to see that change. Um, it could go anywhere. I guess I hope by starting this YouTube channel that eventually, maybe I'm recognized, and I could influence more people on a bigger platform, maybe a radio show or something like that. Um, yeah, I basically set it up so that I can be, identified and um, put out there to help as many people as I can.
What have been some of your larger criticisms since starting the channel?
Uh, yeah, you pretty much will be ostracized from society when you start talking about these realities.
Yeah.
My family, my sisters in particular, don't like what I say. Um, I had a pretty heated exchange with my middle sister. Well, she's the oldest sister, but I've got two, so she's one younger than me. Um, where she was basically claiming that she was so upset by what I say, and obviously I understand as a rational male where it's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
She's going through that period of time where she's had to realize that her sexual marketability is declining, and
Mm-hmm.
she's forced to face this uncomfortable reality that no one told her, and she sees um, me as a threat to taking that away from her. She's got a long term relationship with a guy who is oblivious to what's going on. He's younger than her, so she's obviously preying on his ignorance. And he's a good, decent guy, earns a lot of money. He's got a couple of houses,
Mm.
and she's just trying to lock him in, and um, a woman's hypergamy, relies on a man being in blissful ignorance of his value until after a woman can capitalize on his commitment to her.
Wow. Yeah, I've noticed the people who truly have a problem with this kind of content are typically women who are pushing 30 or past 30, women who are single moms, and women who are overweight. It's rare you see a woman in a happy, thriving relationship complaining about this. Mostly
Mm,
because if you are in a happy, thriving relationship, you probably aren't even on YouTube. You're probably even
mm.
watching the videos. So I always
Well,
find it funny.
you got nothing to complain about if you're in a happy relationship.
Yeah, and a lot of women in those relationships would tell you he's right. He's saying the right things.
Mm,
But even
mm.
your sister, that's interesting. My sister is older in age as well, so definitely I know where you're coming from. How's the dating scene in Australia? Is Australia considered part of the West?
Yeah, I mean, I would consider it. It's not like complete outback. It's pretty civilized here. We
So
are woke, though. We are very woke.
what's the what continent is in Australia on?
It's its own continent.
Ah, okay, okay. Because I asked a different Australian, they were like, it's Oceania's the continent.
Nah, I mean, Australia is its own continent. I mean, Oceania is the region, I guess you'd say.
Okay. And 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 what are the countries in Australia?
Well, we got states. So we got like sort of like what Canada has set up. Like they're another part of the Commonwealth, and they've got Ontario and all that, British Columbia, sort of like that, but in Australia.
But what's the country, Tom?
The the
What's the
country
name of the country?
is it's called Australia.
Okay, all right, all right.
Yeah, yeah,
I remember
legit.
this fun fact from years ago that Australia is a continent and a country, and then I asked someone born and raised in Australia, and they had no idea that it was a continent.
Yeah, I mean, I could be wrong. They could call the continent something else these days, but I
No.
remember from school, it was. I mean, they're changing these things all the time. How can you keep up?
So I'm sorry, I lost track. So how is the dating scene?
The dating scene. Yeah. So look, it's very similar to all the other Western countries. Women are extremely selective. Um, you kind of don't get looked at if you're in the bottom 90%. You sort of only get looked at if you're in the top 10%. Uh, Everyone else is invisible. Um, there's a lot of virgins in who are younger. A lot of young virgins.
Like what age did
Um,
you say?
like
Early
even
20s?
up to like 25. Yeah, 20, even the mid 20s. Like there's even some of the good looking guys that just the women do not want to deal with them because 20-year-old women putting photos on Instagram are getting liked by guys all over the country. And, you know, why would they bother with some little guy, who's 20 years old as well? So,
Wow. That's
yeah, it's It's pretty
Interesting.
sad for him. Yeah, it's pretty sad because I was lucky. I'm of the sort of generation that's a little bit older. So when I was that age, I was I was very successful because Tinder was sort of not even a thing, and you went out to the clubs, you picked up a girl, you took her home, and that was that.
You had to speak to
Uh,
people face to face.
you had to, man. Yeah, that's it.
Had
Yeah,
to. Wow. Wow. So you got out the game like just early enough before the madness. Yeah. Wow.
yeah,
That's real interesting, man. Are these men also in college too and still not getting laid?
yeah. I mean, college is a little bit different over here because with I mean, we call it university, but it's the same sort of thing.
Mm.
Um, but basically, you don't live on campus or anything.
Oh,
It's yeah, it's completely different. It's not like your experience, It's you don't go off to college. It's literally like another school. You go to class, you go home, back to your parents or whatever.
it's like high school.
It's like high school, but like yeah, you get a
Higher
degree at the end.
education. Wow. Wow, that's a game changer for real, man. Cause I
Mm,
know some people, man, if they didn't go to college in that environment, and drinking and partying, and if they didn't
mm,
go, man, they might be one of those 25-year-olds, man. Wow.
mm. I mean, the other thing is that nowadays, like 1.5 times as many women go to college than men. Like I think it's like 40% of people in college, university are male, and 60% are women. I read a stat the other day,
And
and
still,
so if you and still they're virgins, yeah, that's it. Like it's funny they've got a massive strike rate, but these women are going home and putting selfies on Instagram and then getting flued out.
man, a flight from Australia, that's not cheap either.
Uh, I
Wow.
mean, they'll be flying up to Sydney and Queensland and all these other, places in Australia, all the other major cities, and you know.
Do you see just kangaroos hopping around?
Nah, I get asked this all the time by Americans. It's not like there's kangaroos in the backyard and stuff. I haven't seen a kangaroo in like 4 years.
Oh wow.
They're in the outback. They're in like if you had like, well, you know how you got like California, the desert there, it'd be like that's where the kangaroos are, but they
Oh,
don't gather in the city.
got you, got you. You guys have Outback Steakhouse over there, right?
I think so. Yeah, yeah. We got good stuff.
Have you ever been to
We even cook kangaroo. We even cook kangaroo in the supermarkets. We got them on the shelves. It's
that's
the leanest. It's it's really tough meat. It's like when you chew on steak that's really overcooked.
mm, interesting. I think the Australians like a thicker meat, pause, right?
Yeah, yeah. I love my steak thick and rare in the middle.
'Cause I remember I had Outback Steakhouse years ago. I remember the burger was like so thick, I had to chew it so much to get it down.
Yeah, yeah. That's why I like it.
Man, you gotta eat your burger with a knife and fork.
Yeah, you gotta have a steak knife for this stuff.
So, what are you doing when you're not doing stuff for your YouTube channel?
So I'll run you through my day if that's all right.
That's fine.
So I get up at 8:30. I go straight to work. So I skip breakfast. I don't eat breakfast. I fast. And I go to work. I work till 5:30, from 9 to 5:30, and then I go straight to gym. I bang out an hour and a half of weights and a bit of cardio. Um, and then I come home and I am straight into YouTube full time, 9:30 till 2:30 in the morning. And I am like, yeah, on the grind.
How many videos do you get on that time span? Like how many videos do you make?
I mean, editing is the hardest part.
Oh,
Like
okay.
I've
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like a video will take me like 20, 30 minutes to do with edits and stuff, with stuff ups and that, and you sort of got to cut them out and compile your thoughts and that. But then, oh geez, like a 10-minute video will take me like 40 hours to edit.
You said 40 hours?
40 hours, yeah. Once you
Four
consider like
zero?
40, yeah, like a week's worth of work basically. So, and maybe it's because I'm not that efficient, but you've got to you got to consider the fact that you got to do subtitles, a thumbnail, put the video up, cut it out, add in your images, crossfade it, check everything, check the audio's good, fix up your mistakes. You know, sometimes I've made mistakes in the video and I've had to like snippet a new recording in, and hopefully no one notices it. But I try and keep it good for the viewers. But I made a lot of mistakes, I'll tell you that. And I remember one time I made a mistake, and it took me like 4 hours just to correct that one mistake, and I was, oh, what a waste of time that was.
Mm, wow.
So
So
yeah, can be very time consuming. Yeah.
wow, yeah, man. This is why I love these kind of conversations because it makes me realize how much I'm not doing. Like,
Mm.
yo, wow.
No, I mean, you got value in other areas. Like, look at the platform you got now. Like,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I gotta stop doing that to myself where I just kind of like, it's whatever. Like you just hit record, ask a few questions, but I need to, embellish what I do a little bit more. Like this is an
absolutely.
accomplishment.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and the other thing is, you're sort of comparing that to yourself, and like you sort of do other things outside of everything that adds value. And I'm not always doing this. Like, there are some nights where I get home and I'm just exhausted by 11, and I call it,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I just go, my brain's fried. I've got to have a chill, or I've got to go to the sauna just to relax because I'm stressed out, or something like that, or um, like, it's not a flawless system. That's sort of the ideal that I try to live up to, but
Oh,
I'm not always successful.
I got you. So has the channel your content made your dating life harder or easier?
Um, Probably harder by the way of the fact that I'm not really pursuing women. I've got a few girls that come over from time to time, but you know, if I like, to quote Rollo Tomasi, spinning plates, if those plates fell off, I probably wouldn't be bothered trying to find new plates to spin because I've just got no time. Um,
Mm.
and you know, it's almost like sometimes I just think, God, like, leave me alone. To some of the girls that are calling me, just like, let me do. I'm on my purpose. Let me do my thing. I see it as a distraction. Um, I still talk to people at the gym. That's where I sort of, you know, bounce a lot of ideas off people on the treadmill and between exercises and stuff. So I'm still getting out there and meeting people, and running, I guess, game or flirting with people just to stay in practice for when I do decide to pick it back up. Um, but yeah, I would say it hasn't affected me too much, but just by way of time.
It seems like you don't really care all that much. Like if they're there, they're there. If they're not, they're not. And
Yeah,
do you think that's due to you kind of having your fun with him in the past, and now you've kind of grown past that stage, or is it more so okay? I'm focused. I don't really care about anything that's not my purpose.
I think both. And I also think a third thing, when I was younger, I think that because I didn't have any direction, I I could achieve something by conquering women, and I would see it as game, and I'd be like, how successful can I be? And I pretty much put my value on
Mm-hmm.
um, how many women I could sleep with that week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that was my party years, and I was immature, and I've outgrown that to some extent, but I'm still a man. I've still got desires and that. Um, it's more that right now I've got it. I've got something to do. I've got a purpose. I need to stay focused. But I do realize that isolating yourself is dangerous, and this is one of the laws of power. I
Mm.
forget what number it is, but it's basically, don't build fortresses to protect yourself. Isolation is dangerous. Um, Long term, you need other people to survive, essentially.
Interesting. I'm gonna read that book next. That
Yeah, I highly recommend it. You'll enjoy it, and some of his other ones are really good too.
yeah. I definitely the Law of Attraction. I want to read that as well.
Yep.
And the only thing that pushed me away is just the length of the book, but I
Mm.
gotta eat the frog, right?
Here's the thing, like, how about you? Because it's actually, you don't have to read it in order, so you can. It's not like one law flows on from the other. You could read and pick which chapters you choose to start. Choose the ones that interest you the most. If that's the thing that's blocking you from starting the book if the length is. Um, and as you read, you'll be like, oh, this doesn't relate to me. Like I remember the first time I read it, I was like, this isn't a law. Like this is bull. It's not. I can't see how this could work. But then you experience something, and you're just like, hang on a minute, that he's right. Like that is a law of power. Like I could have influenced them that way, and I didn't, and I lost all my influence because I didn't do that law. And then you go back and you read that book, and this is why I say I've read some chapters like 30, 40 times, because I've either broken the law or I've been in a situation where I've had to use it, and I wanted to see if I used it properly. Um, yeah. So you could use it as a Bible in essence. Read passages that relate to you during times of challenge and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's one thing I think I need to do more of. I've read like a lot of book. Well, not compared to you, but compared to the average person, I've read a lot of
Yeah,
books,
definitely.
and I need to start going back and rereading some chapters because I once I read it once, I just leave it. So I think I need to do a better job of going back and reminding myself.
Mm. I think there's a lot to be said about rereading old texts that you've read previously. Um, because, and if anything, the reading the laws of power taught me, because it doesn't resonate with you at any point in your life. Like you might go through something, and then what that was said then didn't resonate you at the top with you at the time, but you make sense of it, and then you've got to go back and reread it to make sure that you understand it. Um, and this is with any book. There's a saying by Heraclitus that says, "No man ever steps in the same river twice, for it's not the same river, and he's not the same man."
Mm.
And it sort of shows that things around you change, but also you change. And so, even if things around you don't change, you change your perspective. So go back and reread old stuff.
Got you. Just constantly remind yourself and have that self awareness and implement what
Mm,
you learn.
mm.
What would you say is the number one message that you would want to give to men? The overall message.
Um, yeah. I mean, there's several messages that are obviously valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'd say don't prioritize women over what it is that you want to do. Don't make women the focus of your life. They should be like a side dish. Your main course is your purpose and what you can give back to the world. Um, and it might revolve slightly around your woman, but it should never be focused on your woman.
So
Yeah,
so do you feel like you being on your purpose has attracted women?
I think so. I some of the girls that I see, I've noticed that they're getting a bit more anxious. Like it's sort of like they've got to compete with something else. Like, and I'm completely honest with them. I tell them that this isn't exclusive. It's like a part time thing. It's like this. I'm not exclusive. I'm seeing other girls. Um,
You must hate
you
that.
know, yeah, but they put up with it. If I'm honest, like you'd be surprised. Like, um, I know. I think as a man, you've got to also provide an insane amount of value to be able to pull that off.
Mm-hmm.
The girls that I've found really, really value emotional security, um, and I feel like I've got that in abundance. I can offer them a lot of stability, advice, and they feel like they're sort of like a part, and they can come to me with their problems, and I can sort of be their rock in a way, even though it's not like a relationship. It's sort of um, it resembles that slightly, like a part-time relationship. Now I forget where I was going with this, but oh yeah, so they're starting to get anxious because they don't have as much access to me. So I'm aware that some of these plates may fall off because I'm not providing them with an adequate amount of security to what they desire. For them, and I say this all the time. There's different levels of what women desire in men, and it could be anything from finances to leadership, emotional security, sexual security, parental investment. It could be any of these things, and a woman will put up with a lot if you provide her a lot of what she desires. And that's sort of the hypergamy in her.
Got you. And my last question: If you got dinner with 5 people, dead or alive, who would it be?
If I could have dinner, ooh, I would go with uh, a guy called Thomas Sowell. He'd be my number one.
Sounds good.
Um, he is alive. He's the one of the most rational human beings I've ever met. Some of his books are great too. You'd love him. He was a teacher, um, and he just sets straight a lot of things about racism and about economics. Um, Basically, everything in the West is all about life's unfair and this, that, and the other. And he sort of sets it straight and says not everything's not everything's fair, and this is why it's not fair. Rather than sort of complaining about it, he sets it straight. So Thomas Sowell, I'd have dinner with him. I'd have dinner with Rollo Tomasi. um, I'd have dinner with Abraham Lincoln.
Nice.
Um, I would say Robert Greene as well from the 48 Laws of Power. Um, and fifth one, I'd probably say Tesla. What's his name? Elon Musk.
Mm,
I'm an engineer by trade, so I have to put in an engineer.
that's a solid list. I've been trying to get Rolo on the show for the longest, and he just keeps leaving me on the scene. So maybe one day.
Shattered. Yeah.
That is all the questions I have for you today. Thank you so much for taking the time out to come speak to me.
No, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. We'll do it again sometime.
Oh, for sure.